Hey, it's Cassidy, your friendly internet tired writer here, and welcome to another video. Despite having a song break where he sings a love song for Princess Peach called Peaches, Bowser is a surprisingly effective villain. He's comedic and should be a complete joke. In fact, he kind of is a complete joke.
Love really makes a guy come out of his shell.
But despite that, he manages to remain intimidating, which is a balance that many writers struggle to strike. So what makes Bowser balanced enough that he can be fun but also an effective villain? Before I start, I wanted to clarify that when I say a fun villain, I mean a villain who is comedic and is supposed to be at least partly a joke. Bowser is supposed to be the butt of the joke. I'm talking villains who are punchlines. And villains who are supposed to be punchlines, which is why Jared Leto's Joker is not in this video. I'm not wearing sunglasses. My transitions are just dark because I had to go outside. Okay. What makes an effective villain? In order to discover what makes a fun villain effective, we should probably talk about what makes a villain effective. Villains are pretty diverse these days. There's no cookie cutter way on how to make them. So this is by no means a definitive checklist on how to create a villain, the best way to create a villain, etc. These are probably just the three key factors in creating an effective villain. Number 1. Threatening. To be effective, the villain actually needs to be a villain. No empty story promises. It's like if Sauron was built up to be this horrible, evil, dark lord, and then he just sort of doesn't do anything. Like if the only obstacle Frodo faced in destroying the ring was sore feet. Yeah, Sauron would be a pretty lame villain. 2. Unbeatable. Okay, maybe not unbeatable. I mean, if you plan on having your hero defeat the villain, then he needs to actually be able to beat him. But conflict takes two to tango, baby. So the villain and the hero need to have some sort of advantage and disadvantage over each other. And if the villain has a disadvantage, then that's a pretty short story. In the Mario movie, Bowser is the most powerful character introduced, at least in the beginning. It literally takes Mario and Luigi eating a magical star in order to beat him. Pretty much all the time in fantasy, the villain needs to be somewhat more powerful than the hero, at least for the majority of the story, in order for them to actually be a threat. That's just kind of the basic mechanics of it. Number 3, motivation. And this can be as simple as chaos, which was explored with the Joker in The Dark Knight. But there just needs to be some motivation. Generally speaking, audiences don't really jive with the vibe of the evil for the sake of being evil villain. There just needs to be some reason for the characters to do what they do. That's just kind of a general rule of thumb when writing. You know, Gaston just wanted Belle to love him. Corella just wanted a warm winter coat because London is so cold. I'm from Manitoba. It doesn't have to be a reasonable or a complex motivation. Like I said, it can literally be as simple as chaos. I mean, even the Grand Master from Thor Ragnarok had a reason for having slaves and forcing them all to fight each other to the death. It was fun. Yahoo! Okay, so that's what makes a villain effective. Obviously, to make an effective villain fun, you need to introduce the comedic factors. And there are generally 2 routes a writer can take to accomplish this. Route 1, villainous before comedic. The Super Mario Bros. Movie opens on the Snow Kingdom, where Bowser's fiery army meets the Penguin army. Not only does the Penguin army do literally nothing to Bowser's army, Bowser destroys the Snow Kingdom palace, captures the penguins, and steals the superstar, a power-up that will basically make him unbeatable. Go Bowser! That first scene is why when Bowser has an entire musical number dedicated to how much he loves Princess Peach, that it doesn't undermine his intimidation. In fact, it actually serves his villainy. In that first scene, it was established that Bowser is a real threat and he is basically unbeatable. In the Peach scene, when he sings a love song to Peach, he is reinforcing his motivation for his villainy. He wants to marry Peach and thinks that taking over the world and stealing the superstar will convince her. World domination and stealing weapons of mass destruction. Way to a girl's heart. I am all for writers creating fun villains. In fact, sometimes I like them better than dramatic villains, and I would love to see more of them in adult-oriented media. But a fun villain is first and foremost a villain. So even if you want the villain to be the butt of the joke, if you still want them to be effective as the main antagonist, they need to be intimidating. They need to be a threat. I mean, Loki is made into a joke countless times throughout his run as an MCU villain, but he is still a threat. I mean, he kills a lot of people. Route 1 basically establishes the villain before the punchline. It reinforces the idea that the villain is a villain first, a joke second. Bowser is a villain first, a really talented pianist with the vocal cords of Michael Bublé second. Route 2, comedic before villainous. Here's the thing. A villain who's funny isn't necessarily a subversion of expectations. Villains come in all shapes and sizes. Joke villains have been done before. Villains who start off funny only to reveal they're a serious threat, sometimes not even becoming villains until later on. Now that's a subversion of expectations. Take Titan from Megamind. And no, I did not know it was spelled like that. He starts off an incel simp who was mocked by the movie and the characters, and then becomes Titan, a villain with the powers of Superman. That's a legit threat. His motivation is built up throughout the movie. You know, he is in love with Roxanne, and Roxanne does not feel the same way about him. In fact, she kind of looks down on him a bit, and he doesn't like that. So he decides, hey, I have these powers now. I'm going to show Roxanne and the world that I'm Mr. Powerful. So his motivation is built up while he's still a joke. And then when he becomes a villain, his threat level is established and his intimidation factor is established. So just like in Route 1, comedy reinforced Bowser's villain motivation, and in Route 2, comedy reinforced Titan's villain motivation. They've just switched positions in the script. While Routes 1 and 2 won't necessarily work for every character who you want to be a fun villain, I don't think it will always matter which one you choose. Like, I don't think it would have mattered if Bowser was a joke before a villain, because the comedic aspect of his character reinforces the villain aspect of his character. I think as long as the comedy reinforces one of the three villain factors, it probably just doesn't matter. Do not let comedy undermine the villainy. One thing writers need to remember when creating a fun villain is that if you want the villain to be intimidating, then you can't undermine them with comedy. Like I said before, a villain is first and foremost a villain. Their primary narrative role is antagonist, especially if they are the only antagonist. Their comedic role can't overshadow their villain role. It either needs to be balanced or the comedy has to take a backseat to the villainy. At least if you want your villain to be effective. If you just want to write a villain who's funny and kind of stupid and silly and not that much of a threat, that's not what I'm talking about. So, I mean, you can have a villain who is funny and whose comedy is unrelated to their villainy. However, by connecting the two, it can help develop that character. And it also helps to ensure that the character doesn't feel disjointed. Their comedy feels natural despite them being villains. Benefits of the fun villain. It gives them more depth.
That's the smartest thing I've ever heard anyone say about anything.
Few people are all bad, just like few people are all good. Humor and fun help to humanize otherwise evil characters. When your villain is serious and dramatic, it can be very hard to humanize them without making them traumatized and mentally ill. There are other ways to humanize your villains. I think Bowser being in love with Peach obviously shows that he wants some sort of connection. Now, he's obviously violent and power hungry, but there is that aspect of him that craves connection and affection. And he also likes piano. He's a good singer.
I'll make you mine. Oh.
Little things that are ridiculous for a turtle villain to enjoy, but they add more to his character and they add lightheartedness to his character. Normalize giving villains normal hobbies. Villains, even if they're serious and dramatic, do not need to have their only feature that makes them human and makes them relatable be trauma and mental illness. It can be something stupid and funny and almost meaningless in a way, but that other people can relate to. You can humanize them in ways that won't depress your audience. Conclusion. Writers don't need to choose between fun and effective. I mean, I like writing traumatized characters as much as the next writer, but sometimes it's nice to laugh with your villains instead of cry for them. I mean, there's a reason some of the most memorable villains are the fun ones, and it's not just because of nostalgia. I think they do have their own merit. Watching Bowser sing Peaches while playing the piano was not something I expected to see when going to the Super Mario Bros. Movie, and I was smiling throughout the entire number. However, looking back, I can see that for what it truly was. A genius plot device to develop Bowser's toxic idea of love that is an amalgamation of his need to control and dominate and his craving for affection. Developing his motivation to steal the superstar under the pretense it's for the woman he loves, and when she ultimately rejects him, triggers the rage buried beneath his hard shell in the form of controlling and dominating behavior that he aims at not only her but at the world itself. Or maybe Jack Black just wanted to sing. I'm done ranting now. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video. Another reminder, this is all my opinion. I am not an expert at anything, but I am a writer, so I like to think I'm a little bit knowledgeable. But don't take my word as gospel. But I am also definitely correct. Now for some self-promo. This is before I turn 18. It is a literary anthology full of poems and musings about the transition from adolescence to adulthood. It is an existential crisis in a book. This is the Mortal's End trilogy. It is a fantasy trilogy. It is about a war. There is a sorceress, there is magic, there is a dragon. But it is my first story I ever wrote. I've been told it is entertaining. And this is We Shall Reap. It is a standalone fantasy set in the same world as the trilogy, but it comes a little before. I wrote it when I was 15. It's focused on these 7 characters who have to go on this quest to find this ancient artifact. Each have their own reasons, and those reasons may or may not cause conflict and chaos. Thanks, and I'll see you next time. Do not let comedy undermine the villainy. This world will end up in tyranny. I just want to be free from this legacy of evil and devilry. I want to be the inner me, who's funny, but that's not what the world expects of me. I'm a villain. I'm rotten to the core, but I want more. I want to spread my wings and soar.